Poso maoni wiak, waiwanan kitanan ni mua e yoski piataya posnotaman e yum MITW Podcast. A yospis piataya posnapi notaman and e hisikimaka e yoso matnameneha kihi.
You're listening to the Menominee Indian Tribe of Wisconsin podcast. I'm your host, Sheena Wapoose.
And Gary Dodge. As always, we have Vaughn Bowles, Public Information Officer for the Menominee Indian Tribe of Wisconsin, joining us today. Welcome, Vaughn.
Morning.
So, Vaughn, is it true that surgical masks and KN95 masks work better than cloth masks? I read that in an article this week.
That's pretty accurate, actually. So the CDC's put some stuff out, more stuff out on masks, and they start by saying, well, an N95 or a KN95, that's just the Chinese equivalent. Respirator masks are the most efficient filtering particles. The CDC recommends that we reserve those for healthcare workers specifically. And then they actually have a table that lays out how well things are filtered out. There's also a great kind of chart put out by Texas A&M about how many particles are filtered out in the materials. And so if you're going from most protection or most efficient at filtering, it would definitely be the N95s, the KN95s, followed by various types of surgical masks. And then cloth masks are really kind of not great sometimes. They've found that in some cases they only catch like 24% of particles. Sometimes the average seems to be around 35-ish%. And it's kind of funny because they actually, Texas A&M compares, and they're like, you could use a bra cup, which filters out 83% of particles, or a surgical mask, which surprisingly is not quite efficient as a bra cup. It only does 72%. If you're using a pillowcase, that'd filter out like 56% of all particles. If you're using a shower curtain, I don't know why they use some of these things. They use some of the craziest things. A shower curtain would filter out about 55%, and then a bandana only filters out about 28% of all particles. So you're really better off using a surgical mask or an N95 if you have them around and they're available and stuff to you. So yes, the N95 and the surgical mask are definitely better than your pillowcase and or cloth mask.
But a bra cup would work.
Bra cup might be better, yeah.
The White House announced a detailed plan to vaccinate the 5 to 11 age group. Although the vaccine is not officially approved for that age group, is the tribe preparing at this point to do like a similar plan as well?
Yeah, we're anticipating that the vaccines will eventually be approved for ages 5 and up. And so we're working with the Menominee Tribal Clinic and stuff to prepare how we're going to administer and distribute those vaccines to children, of course with parent consent, since they have the final say over the health of their children. I know the administration is currently planning on having 28 million children vaccinated by Christmas, so hopefully there'll be a higher amount of vaccines distributed so we can vaccinate our elderly with the boosters, the unvaccinated with their first and second doses, or first dose if it's Johnson & Johnson, and then the children that are now going to be eligible for vaccination. So we'll see how it goes. But yes, we're planning on being ready for that once that is final. Once we're given permission for that.
Is there going to be trick-or-treating this year? That is a question I see a lot coming up in the community.
I'm just going to throw this out there. Technically, families are free to choose whatever they want for Halloween. So it could be. I know the tribe's actually organizing a drive-through Halloween event, going to be held on the 31st from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. There'll be bags of goodies that can be distributed there, so they can do that if they'd like. Nice, safe alternative to going knocking doors and interacting a lot with the public.
But there isn't like set hours the way that there normally would be like in a non-pandemic year?
I haven't heard of anything like that right now, so I can't really talk about that.
Okay. So is Biden's vaccine mandate going to be finalized soon? I know we talked about that when it was kind of first announced. And if so, is there any more news on how this will affect the tribe? Because I know when we first talked about it, you just kind of said we didn't know right now.
Yeah, and it's kind of the same case right now. Federal processes, it's really hard to estimate any sort of timetable for those. And as far as how it's going to affect the tribes sometimes don't fall under the same mandates as other parts of the country. So we're not sure how it'll affect us at this point. We have been discussing, how we would go about implementing something like that, and or if we wanted to. There's been some rather heated debates on both sides of the issue because, it's federal law or sovereign nation type scenarios, as well as personal choice. So there's still a lot of discussion about how it's going to play out, and we're not really sure yet.
Okay.
So what is the new variant from England?
Yay, new variants. That's everybody's favorite topic. It's the ever popular AY42. So it's essentially a subvariant of the Delta variant that's currently out there and all over the country. It was discovered back in July, and it makes up about 6% of the cases in the UK right now. The College of London Genetics and Institute, their institute director right now indicated that the subvariant may be about 10% more contagious than the Delta variant, but their experts and also ours at the CDC both agree that it's not really a cause for panic, especially right now. It's pretty similar to the Delta variant, and so they're not too concerned about it right now.
Okay, so I've heard conflicting things on mixing and matching vaccines for high-risk individuals to get the Pfizer booster after getting Johnson & Johnson or Moderna for their first vaccination.
So I was actually listening to the radio today, and they did mention that the individuals that had Johnson & Johnson could get a Pfizer or Moderna booster. I believe Moderna boosters were actually approved yesterday. I didn't see the CDC report on it, but that is what I've heard through the grapevine and other news sources. And so it's not discouraged for Johnson & Johnson. I haven't heard of people getting like the Pfizer and then having a Moderna booster, though. I don't know if that type of mixing is approved yet, but they're saying that if you've had Johnson & Johnson, you can mix and match at this point.
Okay. And is it true immunity has started to wear off for some people who got the Pfizer vaccine?
Yeah, so they've found that, the Pfizer vaccine, in some people, immunity begins to wane about 6 months after their full vaccination. And so it is decreasing in some portions of the population. And so they're working on being able to give them boosters at this time.
Is that different for Moderna or Johnson & Johnson? So
Moderna, they've found that Moderna lasts a little bit longer than Pfizer's. They were saying around 8 months for Moderna. In some cases, they've found that Moderna does last longer, has a kind of a higher response rate or more vigorous response rate, and so they're seeing it last just a little bit longer than Pfizer's in about 2/3 of the cases, half the cases.
Sorry to go backwards, but
No,
with
fine.
the Moderna booster being approved, does that means a lot more people in our population are going to be available for a booster, correct?
Absolutely.
Because we mainly had Moderna.
Right, and talking with Dr. Schlegel and stuff, they've already started contacting elders in the community and stuff that got their vaccinations, right when we started rolling them out, and so they're trying to get them in for boosters and contacting them. They're also working with the healthcare employees as well to get their boosters taken care of. So yeah, they're working on getting those boosters out.
How can tribal employees know when they're ready to return to work after a COVID infection?
So right now, rule of thumb, both with the tribe and with the CDC, is 10 days after the onset of symptoms, they usually consider you non-contagious. Also, another way to look at it is 24 hours after your last day with a fever, you can usually return to work without any sort of issues. If you didn't have a fever, then they say when your symptoms start to improve, when you're cough or shortness of breath starts to decrease, that's usually when you're safe to return.
So even if you still have symptoms 10 days after the onslaught, you could come back? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so usually viral load is decreased to the point where you're safe enough not to be considered safe enough not to be contagious. You'll still have viral particulates in your body. You'll test positive for several weeks after you're unable to pass it to others. So you may have some residual symptoms, like there are the cases of long COVID where people still have slight cough or shortness of breath for a month and a half down the road, but they're not contagious.
Was there anything else you wanted to add?
No, that's it. Thanks for showing up and listening, everyone.
Waiwanan for listening to the Menominee Indian Tribe of Wisconsin podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher. You can also listen to the podcast on menominee-nsn.gov under the Community tab. Keep up to date by following us on Facebook at MITW Podcast. If you have any topic suggestions or questions about COVID-19, you can send those to us at podcast@mitw.org.